You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
Los Angeles, what is going on? Welcome to the LA Football Show here on the LA Football Network, your destination for Los Angeles football. This is the Chargers edition. Bolt up as we get into this tough loss to the Niners up in Santa Clara on Sunday Night Football. We're going to get all into it. I'm Ryan Dyer, joined as always by the madman, Jamal Madney. What's up, man? How was the weekend? Happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday, Ryan. Good weekend. Personally, I wish it was a better weekend on the field, but excited to get into it with you. I've got a little bit of the Monday blues today, just because of what's transpired over the weekend, but always a delight to do this with you.
Yeah, it started off great on Friday at the Coliseum. Our Trojans 55-17 winners covered the line. Me and you got to hang out for a little bit at the stadium. So it started off great and then went 0-3 from there with the rest of our team. So obviously any other LA football fans, we got all those shows up for you on the LA Football Network if you want to check out Trojans, Bruins, or Rams. But this is the Chargers edition. Chargers fall in a heartbreaker 22-16. Sunday Night Football. They fall to 5-4 overall on the season. I know we both have a lot of thoughts about this game, about this team, about this staff, about this fan base. We're going to get into all of it. Show is always brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Head to betonline.ag today. Use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. You get a 50% welcome bonus on your first time deposit. Had you taken the spread for the Trojans game, you would have won. They covered at the very end there with a last-second touchdown from Barlow, 34.5 points, and they covered. So betonline.ag is your place for all that here. Use promo code BELIEVE. Tell me guys at the LA Football Network sent you. All right, Jamal. So tough game. I thought the Chargers played admirably well. There is no such thing as moral victories. I get that, but we're going to get all into kind of why I'm on that side of this fence a little bit. But first off, just your initial takeaways from this tough game overall.
I thought the Chargers competed their tails off, and I thought it was really a tremendous performance when you zoom out and take the bigger picture and understand that they were missing wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 4, tight end 1, tight end 2, left tackle 1, right tackle 1, injuries on the defensive line, their best pass rusher, injuries to the secondary, arguably their best cover corner. When you sort of factor all of those things on the road against a team that is starting to get Super Bowl buzz. Well, when do the Niners not get Super Bowl buzz every year in the NFC? But a team such as that in their building, coming off of a bye and being in a position where you had the ball, and if you march down the field and score a touchdown, you win the game at the very end. To be able to do all of that and overcome everything that you did, I thought it was an absolutely terrific performance. And I feel much the way I felt after that early Chiefs game early in the year, where it was just a very admirable performance. I thought the preparation was terrific. I thought the culture and the attitude of the team was fantastic. And I thought overall, the execution in that first half was really excellent. And opening drive touchdown, took advantage of a fumble, was able to get points before the end of the half and really string together 16 points. Herbert throwing some dimes. That touchdown to DeAndre Carter was terrific. That beautiful ball, that sort of across the field fade to Joshua Palmer to set up first and goal at the 2. It's just the things that make you salivate and fall in love with Justin Herbert. So all things considered, given how banged up this team is, to play as well as they played, I think is absolutely terrific. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but even if they put together a similar performance in terms of preparation, execution, and attitude, even if they lose next week to Mahomes and the Chiefs and are at 5-5, I still think this team has their best football in front of them, is very much a legitimate playoff team. And depending on how healthy they can get over the course of the final 7 or 8 weeks of the season, can really make a run. So overall, I was very positive about this performance, very puzzled by some of the things that I saw and read and heard on social media from the fan base, but I'm sure we'll get into all of that in detail. but overall feeling really good about the Chargers moving forward.
Yeah, I feel better today after this loss than I did after some of the wins they've had this year. 'Cause I think we saw a commendable, and I know people were like, well, there's no moral victories, but you have to look at what is transpired off the field and the product on the field. And, we talked, Jamal, in our preview show. I think we both predicted, I think I had a 3-point loss. You had, I think, a 3 or 4-point loss, right? Really in that 20-17, 24-21 range. I can't remember exactly what scores we had. You probably do remember, but that was the expectation. I mean, when you look on paper, this Chargers team had zero business even competing with the Niners. When you look at what the Niners, not only adding Christian McCaffrey, you have a healthy Deebo Samuel, you have George Kittle, you have a healthy offensive line with Trent Williams, the best tackle in football. You have a fairly healthy defense outside of Eric Armstead, who I know is a big loss, but everyone else they pretty much had. And they're coming off a bye week. And so all of that juxtaposed into this game, this Chargers team had no business being. And we both thought, you know what? I think they're going to be well prepared. I think they're going to be well coached. I think they're going to battle their butts off. And they also just play really good in primetime. For whatever reason, they're a competitive team in primetime. And all that came true. And so ending the game, the ending was heartbreaking because they had an opportunity twice, getting the ball twice, turning it over, holding the Niners to a field goal again, and then getting it again. So that's what made it so heartbreaking. But the overall results with who was on the field, like I felt good about it. I don't know how anyone can watch that game, and I'll get into it. I'm sure I'll have a rant here in a minute, but how anyone can watch that game and not say, this team was well prepared, well coached. They made adjustments on defense. Now I know the offense didn't score any points in the second half, which was a huge conversation point on social media, which we'll get into here in a minute. But I just think you have to look at the overall big picture and that this team played this well against a very good Niners team, Super Bowl contender, like you said, which they are every year, and were able to play their butts off and have a chance at the end, which they'll get that opportunity again. I mean, this is 9 games in, and they're a 5-4 football team. They're not 1-8. Let's remember that. They're not 1-8.
No, I think that's spot on, Ryan. And I think the key here, and you said this best on Twitter yesterday, is I'm not even so concerned about the fact that they scored 16 points in the first half and didn't score in the second half. A, they were playing one of the elite defenses in the National Football League on the road. But B, talent ultimately takes over when the sample size becomes big enough over time. And you can't just overcome those injuries and those losses against an elite team. And so the fact that they were able to put 16 points together in the first half when they had an opportunity to script, when they had an opportunity to prepare and be able to identify gaps and opportunities where they could take advantage, I think speaks again to the outstanding job that Brandon Staley has done to get this team ready. And I think that's what makes this Chargers season so interesting, so compelling. And I think the word I would use is mysterious, because time and again, through 9 weeks into this season, I have come away feeling better about the Chargers after the losses than I have after the wins. If you recall a couple of weeks ago, Ryan, I quoted Rosie's character in White Men Can't Jump, where she says, sometimes when you win, you really lose, and sometimes when you lose, you really win. And I feel like she needs to be the mascot of the 2022 Chargers, because after the way they played against the Broncos and the Texans and the Browns, I thought that those were average to below average performances. And I walked away thinking, who really is this team? But then when you look at these performances against the Chiefs and against the Niners and how well they've competed, you can't help but think, gosh, let's just wait for this team to get healthy. And if they can even have 4 weeks, if they can just get from the second week of December to that second week of January, 85% healthy, this team can really make a run and make some noise in the AFC. And that's what I'm really holding out hope for. And fans really have to understand that, yes, we talk all about next man up mentality. And that's the thing that coaches talk about. And that's the thing that media talks about. But if that were really true, if that were really the case, where the next man is just as good as the man before, you wouldn't have sports agents. You wouldn't have endorsements. There would be no need to talk about differences in people's contracts. because then everybody would just be the same. You pay everybody the same, and they're all equally talented and perform equally well. There are stars in this league. There are great players for a reason, and the Chargers aren't really shorthanded from a depth standpoint. It's that they're also shorthanded with their key superstars. These aren't just fourth and fifth guys off the bench. This is arguably six or seven of their 10, 12 best players that aren't playing right now. And so talent ultimately takes over in these games, but you have to look at the way they perform and the way they executed. And if they behave like this on the other side of this Chiefs game, week over week, and start getting healthier week over week, this team still has a lot to play for, and there's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's something controversial. Here's a hot take I'll say before getting into more of the injury stuff. But in my opinion, after last night's game, Kyle Shanahan deserves more scrutiny than Brandon Staley. And too many times in sports, especially with the age that we're in debate shows and talking heads and all this stuff, which obviously we are doing too. But and you just laid it out perfectly in the whole white man can't jump comparison and what really this team is. But too many times at the high level, all people look at is wins and losses, which obviously this is a results business. It's a wins and loss business. I get it. But people will look at that Niners win for the most part and say, great win. Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive minds in football, because that's his narrative every single time. And I know people out there probably think I'm a hater on Kyle Shanahan. I'm not trying to be a hater. I just think he's way overhyped. He's building off the name Shanahan and really hasn't done a whole lot to prove greatness with the rosters that he has had. And so here's why I say he deserves more scrutiny. You come off a bye week with Christian McCaffrey, who I already mentioned, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Trent Williams, the defense they have, and you put up 19 points against a battered, I know they scored 22. I'm not counting that 3-point field goal when they got the ball on the 5-yard line. That's a whole nother story. So they scored 19 points against a defense that missing JC Jackson, missing Joey Bosa, missing defensive linemen. Oh, guess what? They also lost 2 defensive linemen in this game in Christian Covington and Otito Ogbonnia. Lost both of them in this game. And you still, with that firepower, not only do you only put up 19 points, Christian McCaffrey only gets the ball 8 times is what they gave him, I think. 14 carries, excuse me. But the Chargers were able to neutralize him very well. And on top of that, if everyone wants to criticize Joe Lombardi and the Chargers after every single action they do, you have 3rd and 2 from the 2-yard line, goal to go, to ice the game with a touchdown. And Kyle Shanahan takes out his fullback Juszczyk, takes out his running back Christian McCaffrey, and they go to a different sub package, and obviously they don't convert, settle for a field goal. So if everyone out there wants to criticize Lombardi for running a sweet play over to Joey Bosa and all this, and that's the big play everyone loves to mention, why are we not criticizing Kyle Shanahan for putting up 19 points on an embattled defense, having arguably the 2 best weapons in all of football, and not even using those weapons on a dagger situation to seal the game? And yet he'll go off and everyone will say, what a genius. Look at another win. The Niners are back. They're 5-4. Guess what? Same record as the Chargers. I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
No, Ryan, you bring up such an excellent point, and I actually see a parallel with another LA football figure. Kyle Shanahan is the Lane Kiffin of the NFL. Kyle Shanahan is only this notable and has this much of a brand and has this much respect and has this much following because his last name is Shanahan. If it was Kyle Smith or Kyle Taylor or Kyle whatever, we wouldn't really be caring about Kyle Shanahan as much. And truth be told, he wouldn't be a head football coach. He'd be an offensive coordinator. And this is where pedigree matters in the eyes of so many fans. And so many fans don't take the time to watch the games, to analyze the film, to really see what's going on. And they want to sort of enjoy the hot takes, the Twitter 140 character sound bites, the quick things on social media that they can grab to. And Kyle Shanahan is a perfect function of that. I think that Kyle Shanahan is an above average offensive mind, but all of the things that you're describing in terms of the preparation and maximizing talent, what made Phil Jackson the greatest coach in the history of basketball wasn't the 11 rings. It was that he maximized the talent that he had every year that he coached. And that should be the true metric of a head coach year over year. Not what you win and what you lose, but what was your record and what was your performance given what you had. And if you really look at it that way, you could argue that Kyle Shanahan, outside of their Super Bowl appearance year, has underperformed every year as a head football coach, given the roster that's around him. And it's very similar to Lane Kiffin, son of Monty Kiffin, legend, the inventor of the Tampa 2 offense. Lane always finds a way to be relevant on social media and find the next job, even though Lane hasn't won anything yet in college. And granted, Ole Miss has made a New Year's Six Bowl, and he's doing a nice job there. But these guys, for the brand that they have, for the perception that they have not translated on the field. It's all on the backs of the success of their fathers. And if these two individuals had different last names, we wouldn't really care about them at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one hot take for me. Now we got to get into Joe Lombardi talk. And then that's kind of how we'll end this show a little bit. I want to start from the top and just say, I'm not sitting here saying Joe Lombardi is a top 3 offensive coordinator. Definitely not saying that. Definitely needs improvement. I'm also not saying he's a bottom 5 offensive coordinator. But so I just want to say at the top, I'm not going to sit here. I'm not trying to just defend this guy as like this genius, but I also think he's getting very unfairly critiqued. And, you know, you mentioned, I tweeted out last night, basically saying, like, I'm going to be blunt. Like, if you know, I'm paraphrasing, but if you think this performance was on the coaching staff, then you don't know football based on the injuries and everything going into it. Coaching staff should be commended. They're in the right trajectory. It's a good culture, yada, yada, yada. And obviously got lit up for that by the fan base, which is fine. That's the point of Twitter, right? Like, let's have some fun. And I always appreciate the discourse and everyone chatting. I don't appreciate some people saying my wife should divorce me for that take, but you know, that's neither here nor there. But it was interesting, Jamal. So I was sitting, and here's why real life is so different than Twitter. I went to Slater's 50-50 here in Pasadena, Die Hard Bolt Club, did an event there. Shout out Die Hard Bolt Club. Was awesome seeing all these Charger fans at the bar watching the game. So I'm sitting there at the bar next to a gentleman, never met him. I sat down, we started chatting. He actually noticed our 4th and Staley shirt, noticed that it was LAFB, which was super cool. So shout out for that. But, you know, we were talking, and his biggest thing is he's not a Lombardi guy. He brought that up right away. Like, I can't, Lombardi needs to be fired, this, that, and that. And so we had a good discussion about it. It wasn't like Twitter where it's just all hate. We discussed, and here's something I said, Jamal. And like I said, I'm not standing here trying to just stand for Lombardi, but I was like, all right, I won't say this. I don't think it's bad, but I won't say his name just in case, but he wouldn't want me to. But so I asked him, I was like, look, who are the best offensive coordinators in football right now? And so we started talking about it. Andy Reid. Okay, great. Who are Andy Reid's weapons? Got Pat Mahomes. He had Tyreek Hill for all those years. He's got Juju Smith-Schuster. He's got Travis Kelce. He's got this. Cool. Well, Mike McDaniel's this great new mind. Look what he's doing in Miami. Okay, well, look at his weapons. Now he has Tyreek Hill. He has Alabama receivers. He has running backs that they've traded for and added. Tua, I know, is not as good as Herbert, but Tua still the 5th overall pick, capable quarterback. Okay. Who else do we got as top offensive coordinators? And we started going, well, look at Nick Sirianni and look at Philly. Okay, well, look at the pieces they added. They added pieces in the draft. They have receivers. They've used 1st-round picks on these receivers. They've developed Jalen Hurts. And so you start going down the list, Jamal, of all these offensive gurus. And last thing I'll say, Sean McVay, we talked about Sean McVay. And I was like, well, look at the Rams offense this year. Sean McVay is arguably one of the best offensive gurus in football. That offense is the worst offense in football this year, far and away. I don't think it's because Sean McVay is all of a sudden a terrible offensive mind. A, they lost pieces. B, they had injuries. C, he's gotten a little, we talk about in the Rams segment all the time. He's gotten a little hard-headed in his play calling. But the theme here, Jamal, and what I'm trying, I know you understand this, but I'm just trying to portray this politely to our listeners, is coaching matters. Absolutely. Players matter more than coaches. Coaching can definitely inhibit players. Coaching can definitely build up players. But the talent on the field matters a hell of a lot more than the coach and the scheme. They both go hand in hand. It's a team sport. But no offensive coordinator out there is going to be considered a top offensive coordinator with a Michael Bandy, a DeAndre Carter, and a Josh Palmer as your top 3 playmakers on offense. I don't care if you have Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, who you have. It's just not happening. So the fact that this fan base is so enamored with firing Lombardi, he's inhibiting Justin Herbert. We have a quarterback on a rookie contract and we might miss the playoffs again. And it's because of our play calling, yada, yada, yada down the list. You have to have the horses to go out there and make plays. And right now, unfortunately, they just don't have that.
I couldn't agree more, Ryan. It's really that simple. And so for anyone to say this is on Lombardi, what do you expect him to do with the talent that he has on the field? And guess what? Look, there's a 85% chance, in my opinion, that the Chargers are going to lose next week to the Chiefs. Because if they don't have the horses to go up against Mahomes and that potent offense, but that doesn't mean that all is lost in their season, or Lombardi has lost the team, or Lombardi is lazy, or he doesn't understand football all of a sudden. It's absolutely true. You need the players to be able to go out there and execute. It's really that simple. It's why quarterback is such a highly coveted position in this sport, but it's also why you need to build around the quarterback in an effective fashion. I think the Chargers have done that beautifully over the last couple of years, and most notably this particular offseason of building around Herbert. But guys got to be on the field. I mean, there's really, it's as simple as that. So I completely agree with you, Ryan. I don't really understand where this is all coming from. Part of it, I think, is also just the scar tissue of going so long as a franchise without winning that I see this with other fan bases. I see this with UCLA football, for instance, where one loss, one bad thing happens, and it's almost like PTSD, where all the trauma from all the years past and all of the adversities and all of the heartbreak and all of the challenges bubbles to the forefront, and you sort of become an irrational human being. And of course, the term fan comes from the word fanatic, so we get it. But I think it's really important to have big picture perspective here. Let's judge this team on when they are healthy. And then we can sort of make a determination about whether these coaches are getting a maximum amount of talent out of these guys. And that determination may happen in December. It may happen in January. It may happen next year, depending on who gets healthy when. Keenan Allen, his hamstring. I mean, what does he have a hamstring? I mean, what is going on? So hopefully we get Keenan Allen back on the field and some of these other guys, and then we can sort of judge the body of work.
Yeah. And just two more points on that, and then we can wrap up. First, the discrepancy in players and in coaches in the NFL, in my opinion, I mean, people cannot agree with it. That's fine. I think is so razor thin. You have your elite coaches and play callers at the very top. You obviously have some that are not fit to do it. And then you have everyone in between that is so remarkably close. And to me, that makes a lot of sense and obvious, because you see coaches succeed in some situations and fail in others. And a perfect example of that is Shane Steichen, current offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles. He was public enemy number one on this Chargers coaching staff when he became OC under Anthony Lynn. Everyone coined the term run, pass. And that was the Anthony Lynn's thing, being a big run guy. Everyone hated Steichen, unfit to be an OC. It's too vanilla, not creative enough. Can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. Goes to Philly. Now he's literally, and I'm not just making this up. I've talked to people in the NFL. I know some people, I'm not saying sources, but talk to other people. He will be, unless something tragically happens, the number one hot candidate for a head coaching job next year because of the success that he has had now in Philly. And so I say that because, again, the players and the execution on the field matter. Your players can make your coach look very good, and your players can also make the coach look very bad. And I think we've seen enough good from this Chargers offense, finishing top 5 last year in every statistical category, finishing this year when they have the players very, very good. But when you don't have the horses, you can't really compare on that. So, and I said 2 things, I guess 3 things. So 2 more things. When everyone brings up the first half versus the second half and not making adjustments. And you mentioned it, Jamal, early on when we started recording. I just want to double click on it and go down on it. The first half is all stuff you prepare for. You've scripted. You've practiced, gone through it. And then the second half is where you have to make adjustments on the fly. What worked, what didn't work. The other team is doing that too. You're not lining up against just air and making adjustments. The Niners have obviously one of the best defenses in football, the number 1 rush defense, a very good secondary. They have a great defensive coach in DeMeco Ryans, who's going to be a head coach probably here soon. And when you don't have there's such a big talent discrepancy. You can't always make those adjustments. And also, we love Justin Herbert on the show. Great quarterback. He showed again last night some of the amazing throws. But when your quarterback also is checking it down because maybe the pressure's getting there too quickly, or because you're not having a number one receiver or a number two receiver running those routes, the separation from the corners is just not there. So there's a lot of things that go into it besides the scheme and the play call. And you have to look back and say, okay, because I had literally talking to someone, he's like, why is every third down like we're short of the sticks? And I was like, well, let's look at it. Like, look across the board. 3 of the 4 routes run were past the sticks. Herbert just threw it to the guy short of the sticks because he was the most open because those guys could not get open. And then it's like, well, you got to scheme guys open. I'm like, okay, let's see how we scheme Michael Bandy open. There's a reason. I love Michael Bandy. There's a reason why he was a practice squad fringe player. Last year didn't make the roster. Last year he was on like cut. And then this year practice squad. And now he's starting in games. There's just a talent discrepancy there. Last thing. Everything, or did you want to jump in there real quick?
No, I mean, and Ryan, we're seeing it with the greatest of all time quarterbacks. I mean, Herbert is by all accounts a top 5 quarterback. Is he quite Mahomes? Is he quite Rodgers? Is he quite Brady? Not yet. But even those guys, remember last year when the weapons around Mahomes, where he just had Hill and just had Kelley, and everyone was going too high safety. And they were sort of containing Mahomes. And remember, the whole narrative last year, everyone forgets, the conversation was, what's wrong with Pat Mahomes? Have we seen the best of Pat Mahomes? Stephen A. Smith went on ESPN and said, I don't know if we're going to get a better version of Pat Mahomes moving forward than we ever did. It was a product of resources. Look at how the Bucs started this year with no one around Brady. Look at the way the Packers started this year with no one around Rodgers. And now kind of the emergence of these guys either coming back from the injury list or guys getting healthy or guys emerging finally and getting confidence is correlating with these victories. So these are the greatest quarterbacks to have ever played the game. Those 3 guys are going to be on everybody's top 10 list of all time. And even they're susceptible to not having the appropriate talent around them and seeing a drop off in performance. So what do you expect from a 3rd-year quarterback, albeit with a ceiling through the roof, but still trying to find himself and trying to minimize that floor on some of these throws? Let's have a little bit of empathy. Let's open up our minds a little bit.
Yeah. And Matt LaFleur, considered top 5 coach last year. This year, there's bets if he's going to be fired because also the offense is falling apart. It's like these week-to-week narratives. Yeah. So my last point, Jamal, was for the Fire Lombardi crowd. And when you look at firing coaches, there's 2 things you got to look at. Are you firing the coach to kind of make a statement and kind of mail in the season? Because think about it. Any coach you fire, now all those responsibilities are falling on someone else, just like with any job. Like you're basically forcing everyone else that's still there to take on more responsibility. So if you fire a Joe Lombardi, and if this team was 1-8, this might be a different conversation. And we might say, you know what, maybe I still don't hate Joe Lombardi, but maybe you do try something different. Like it's 1-8. Let's make a statement. Here we go. This team is still a playoff team. They're ranked 8th right now, tied with the same record with the 7th seed in the AFC. And like you said, even if they fall to 5-5, everything's still in front of them. I think this is still a playoff team. So you don't want to, even if you disagree with everything I've said and you still hate Lombardi, firing him and you most likely would promote Shane Day, quarterback coach, who's only called plays at UConn, has never called plays anywhere else. But you're most likely now asking him to be a first-time NFL play caller and the quarterback's coach. And you're adding more things on to a team that is still a playoff bound team or a playoff caliber team when they get all their pieces back. So that is also why this makes no sense. Now, if they go on a bad streak, lose 5 straight, miss the playoffs, yeah, then we can talk. And next year, let's readdress the offensive coordinator position. But at this point, everything else I've said leading up to it, where I think he's actually a good OC, but then also just, even if you disagree, firing him makes 0 sense because now you're just adding so much more responsibility to someone who's never called plays in the NFL. So how do we know, if you don't know without a shadow of a doubt that this person's going to be better than what you have, you're mailing it in. And so unless everyone just wants to mail it in, it makes no sense to do that right now at this point in the season.
And Ryan, what does that tell Herbert? Everybody keeps talking about this quarterback on a rookie contract. Frankly, it's the irrationality of the fans under these situations that would make a guy want to leave. It's not going to be that he's got injuries around him. And if you're going to have an organization that's going to panic because of these injuries and can't really see what the cause of the problems are. And if you make a change right now, whether you're 5-4 or 5-5 in a week, you're throwing in the towel on this season. You don't make a coaching change week 11 and expect to do anything credibly and waste year 3 of the Herbert tenure when you know you're on a clock. So these are the kinds of behaviors that's going to want to make a Justin Herbert leave, not having to fight through a season when he's short of his horses and building camaraderie and building chemistry with his players and his coaching staff moving forward. Because it's when you're in the foxhole and you come out of it and you exceed expectations, that's what builds connection with the franchise and wants to make you have that long-term investment moving forward, not being a part of an organization that just panic fires every time there's adversity and really has no idea what they're doing.
Yeah. And I get to maximize his rookie contract. I get that. I mean, why wouldn't you? You have more resources to be able to do it. But it's not, I think one thing that gets lost in, I don't know, translation or just overhyped is, yes, that's absolutely needs to be the play. Go all in right now. You have the resources to do it. Smart. I'm not saying anything about that. But it's not like this whole window is just over all of a sudden. I mean, you look at outside of the Eagles, the best teams in the NFL, all their quarterbacks are now on their big fat extensions. The Chiefs, the Bills, all these, the Vikings, they're not on rookie contracts. So it's not like this team is just going to fall off a cliff when they have to re-sign Herbert. Yeah, you have to build your roster a little differently, but this team is always built through the draft. This is the first year they've.
I think, Ryan, the concern here is, are you going to show him enough to re-sign him? I don't think.
He's not going anywhere.
I'm not worried about the back end when he's committed for 8-10 years. Yeah. And okay, so you have a little bit less money for the others to go around, but everyone's going to want to run to play with him. I think the question is, are you going to be able to demonstrate enough to him to sign the ink on that extension? Because if Herbert goes somewhere else, I mean, the Chargers might as well be in the dark ages moving forward.
No, totally. I don't think that, but I get what you're saying. I think a lot of fans and others, that their concern is you're not going to have the money to go all in once he's signed.
Yeah.
Which I get the reasoning, but like, just look around the league. I mean, Josh Allen is making $40 million a year. Patrick Mahomes making $50 million a year. Dak Prescott making $45 million a year. Kirk Cousins making $36 million. Like, all these quarterbacks are making a crap ton of money on their second and third deals, and those are still the elite teams in the NFL. So I think that's overblown, is what I'm saying. But to your point, yes, they definitely need to make sure that they prove to him like this is your place.
Effect, right? That's the thing. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think I got everything off my chest. I love Charger fans. I love the passion. So I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm talking down on anyone from a mountain. This is the way I see it, and I just want to voice that. I value all Chargers fans' opinions. I don't agree with a lot of them, which is fine. That's the beauty of the world we live in, and I think it's more fun when we're in person, so we can have actually respectable debates. But hey, hopefully we'll do a lot more with Die Hard Bull Club in that regard. But anything else you want to add, Jamal? I'm good. I got it all out there.
I'm so happy about that, Ryan. I would deem this episode a great success. Because if I were a decorated clinical psychologist, I would say in this session, we had a breakthrough. And so that was sort of my role, to witness the breakthrough. And I think this was a terrific session. And I think some great insights all around. And I'm excited to preview this Chiefs game for the Chargers fans in a few days. And what a passionate fan base the Chargers are, having to deal with everything, right? I mean, in terms of, LA from San Diego, having to share a stadium with the Rams, having to always feel like they have to prove themselves, 3 hated rivals in the division. There's all of these external factors, and Chargers fans keep showing up, keep showing out, and keep voicing their opinions. Keep doing that so we can have these wonderfully spirited debates, and we really appreciate you here at LAFB.
Absolutely, and such great engagement, which we love seeing. So that'll do it for the LA Football Show Chargers edition. Hopefully some therapy, and if you don't agree, let us know. Hit me up on Twitter at Ryan Dowd LAFB. Jamal is at LAFB Jams. You can text into our text line. Text the word BOLTS, that's BOLTS, to the number 31032. You can say whatever you want. It goes all to me, so I'll see all the hate or all the love or all the chatter. So we want to talk more with you. So hit up us on Twitter or text BOLTS to 31032. That's going to do it, though, for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Like Jamal said, we will be back in a few days with our Chiefs and Chargers preview yet again on Sunday Night Football. Cannot wait. Everyone be well, stay blessed. We'll talk to y'all soon.